Hey, Scott Luton, Ward Richmond here with you on Supply Chain Now. Welcome to today's live stream. Ward, how we doing?
Doing great. How are you, Scott? Good to be back in the studio. What's
I know.
happening?
Hey, big week. Today. Of course, the Atlanta Braves kick off their march, hopefully to the World Series. We'll see. What do you think?
Yeah, very cool. I'm just like rooting for whoever you're rooting for. I'm just like Dallas Cowboys is really the only sports that I pay attention to, and I couldn't be happier with how we've started out the year. So go Cowboys!
Well, hey, we got to get you connected with Jada, who's a member of our production team behind the scenes, big Cowboys fan, and y'all can swap glory tales about Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, and the big years of days gone by, right?
They're the big years of the present moment as well, Scott. Here in Dallas, we're fired up.
Having a good time. Okay. Wait, on that note, big thanks to Jada and Clay and Amanda, all behind the scenes, including Allie, that's helping us with today's production. And today, by the way, Ward, today we're continuing our supply chain real estate series right here on Supply Chain Now, powered by our friends at Prologis. And I'll tell you, I've gotten about 117 handwritten letters delivered to us here in Georgia about how much folks have enjoyed this series. How about you, Ward?
Yes, I've received closer to 1,000 handwritten letters, Scott. It's just amazing, and I had to hire somebody just to go through all the mail, and it's outrageous. But
so what you're saying is our supply chain real estate series has been creating jobs, Ward. That's something big.
It's creating jobs out there. The labor market's tight, as we know. But in all seriousness, it's been great, and I've learned more than I could have ever expected from our partners at Prologis and the wonderful guests that we've had. And I couldn't be more excited today. We've talked to a lot of the real estate execs at Prologis who I really deal with on the day-to-day talking about real estate stuff. And I'm very excited about our guest today, which is a little outside of the real estate spectrum, and excited to get into this.
We are too. I love what Prologis is doing with their ventures group, and we're gonna that's gonna be really the focus of today's show. That and really tomorrow's supply chain, perhaps tomorrow's supply chain today. So we're gonna hear some of the things that they are seeing and really investing in that's fueling innovation and growth across industry. So stay tuned for that. We got to give a quick shout out to Peter Boley is back with us. Peter Boley, all night and all day, is tuned in. He says, here for some Supply Chain Now goodness. Happy Friday afternoon, all, and happy Thanksgiving weekend to the Canadian viewers. I got to tell you, Ward, that wasn't on my radar.
Oh, yeah, it is Canadian Thanksgiving, and I should know that because we do a lot of business in Canada, and happy Canadian Thanksgiving to all my Canadian friends and clients.
Definitely. Absolutely. And Peter, by the way, I got to put you on the spot. Let us know how the golf game is going. He's been getting out and enjoying some of the weather up in his neck of the woods here lately. Okay. Well, we got to save as much time as possible for today's conversation. So I want to welcome in our two featured guests here today, Will O'Donnell, managing partner with Prologis Ventures, and his colleague, Todd Lewis, vice president with Prologis Ventures. Hey, Will, Todd, how we doing?
Good. How are you guys today?
Fantastic. Great to see you both.
Good to see you guys.
Well, so did y'all just know that not only are y'all probably creating jobs in across global supply chain, you're creating jobs right here with Ward's team because we're getting all y'all's fan mail.
Yeah, I heard that. And I mean, there's a couple of things to that. One, I'm curious why everyone's sending handwritten notes. I mean, there's this thing called the internet, the email got invented. And I also feel a little bit misled in this situation since I did not realize Ward was a Cowboys fan. I grew up in Philadelphia.
Oh, gosh.
Yeah. And I don't know.
You let him on the show, Scott. You let him on the show.
Because I'm a diehard Eagles fan, and there's a long history between the two. But I promise to let bygones be bygones, and we'll have a good conversation today. But this is something we should have probably discussed in advance.
We need to go to a game together, but it will need to be in Dallas because
I get it. I understand why that's a reasonable request.
Yeah.
we have real-time negotiations playing out right here on Supply Chain Now. And by the way, fly Eagles fly, right? I think that's like the team motto there or something.
Yeah.
Well, Will and Todd, great to have you here today. We enjoyed pre-show talking a little bit of sports, a little bit of food. We talked about exchanging some dad stories. Looks like one of our hobbies for all of us is finding new and creative ways of not exactly embarrassing our daughters, but having a little bit of fun, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
All right. So on that note, see, no one's sharing stories now. I can't even talk about how some of my car line stories. I'll save that for another show. But really quick, and we want to start by having our audience get to know y'all both a little bit better.
Yeah.
So Will, let's start with you. Tell us a little about yourself.
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, I'm a Philadelphia native, but went to Duke University, played golf at college, lived in Boston for a little bit, but have actually been in the Bay Area since 1999. Been with A&B and now Prologis since 2003, and served a pretty wide variety of roles. Participated in a lot of our international expansion, helped open up India, China, South Korea, and Singapore and Mexico. Did some capital raising, helped work on the merger between A&B and Prologis. Afterwards took over and did workouts on 6 private equity funds that were legacy Prologis vehicles. And most recently, in the last 5 years, have really focused on innovation and Prologis Ventures. So we'll obviously get into a little bit more what we're doing there. But it's been a very exciting journey. I think when we look back in 2003, even before where industrial real estate was, versus now where one is Prologis as a company, but two, just this shift in mentality and the importance that supply chain is now playing across the board. I've been never been more excited to be part of a company, part of a journey, and really what lies ahead in the future. So, Todd, I'll turn it over to you, and then we'll jump into the good stuff.
So, Todd, wait, hang on. First off, Will, you're at the intersection. It's like a perfect storm of hot aspects of global business, and it's got to be pretty exciting. I want to share a couple quick comments, and then Todd, I'm going to come to you next, and we're going to talk about growing up in Jackson, Michigan, perhaps. So Peter says that he saved your ward as you welcome or you wish your clients a happy Thanksgiving in Canada. So good job there.
That's right,
Peter.
He did.
So Peter says, hey, he's been killing it. Let's see here. Holding out for an eagle on a par 4 from 124 yards out. Nice. We got some fellow Eagles fans.
There
Michael Avra.
Lots of Eagles fans, actually.
Yeah. You're going to see the snowballs come out soon. Batteries.
Faisal, great to see you here via LinkedIn. Faisal, let us know where you're tuned in from. Allison, who we've got a show this afternoon. Allison says, growing up, I was told I could be anything I wanted to be except a Dallas Cowboys fan.
Oh, these are good people.
They are.
Come on
now. All right. So we got a few other comments we'll circle back to in a minute. Y'all keep them coming. That's some of the best stuff. Todd, though, we really enjoyed. We had an extra minute or two with you pre-show. Grew up in Jackson, Michigan. Big-time hockey player, all-star, and, of course, biscuits and gravy was one of your favorite meals upbringing, right? Tell us more about you.
That's it, right? Biscuits and gravy, Midwesterner, right? Bottom of the mitt. Grew up on a farm.
Yep.
But no, it was great growing up in Michigan. 2 months out of the year, it's a fantastic place to be raised. And then the other 10 months, you're kind of like, give me back to the 2. But it was all for naught because I ended up going to school in California down in San Diego.
There you go.
As a Midwesterner, going to San Diego to school was fantastic. Met my wife down there. And, I think by way of professional background, I've been with Prologis Ventures now for a year, almost on the dot. And prior to joining Prologis, I was over at UPS for 8 years. And I love the company, still bleed brown. We joke about it all the time because I'm a former customer of Prologis.
Okay.
And a quick, great story is how I ended up joining Prologis. I have known Will and the team since really the Ventures Group was started. And at UPS, I wore many different hats, but I was always working within the entrepreneurial innovation ecosystem. And in the latter part of my career at UPS, I was leading their UPS Ventures, which we kind of rebranded and stood up as a more innovative model for UPS to adopt new innovation, right? So there were tons of synergies between what Will's team was looking at and what we were looking at UPS. And so we got together all the time. And my famed story is I went in to visit Will and team, and I'm parked. So if you know where Prologis headquarters is in San Francisco, it's on Pier 1. It's absolutely breathtaking. It's fantastic. And I'm parked in the parking lot directly across the street. And I get out of my truck and I feel like I got shot. And I'm like, oh my God, I'm in so much pain. And I'm rolling around on the ground in the parking lot on Embarcadero across the street from this beautiful site. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. So of course I call Will. And I'm like, Will, you got to take me to the hospital. And he's like, hey, what's going on? So anyways, I ended up getting a hold of these guys. And Ernest Sweat, at the time, former Prologis Ventures guy, comes out, drives me to the hospital. I'm in shambles, right? Turns out it was a kidney stone. Never had one in my life.
Oh my goodness!
Worse than giving birth. My wife sees this.
She's like, this
I
is
know. I'm gonna get slapped.
So much trouble now. When
I know. But anyways, it's like that's when I knew Prologis was going to be a great fit for me because they saw me at my worst and they still wanted me to join the team. So that was it.
I'm not exactly sure where to take the conversation next. There's so many questions I have around that story, Todd. Yeah. But it reminds me of one of my favorite sayings during some of these toughest times here in recent months is this too shall pass. It may pass like a kidney stone, but this too shall pass. All right. So I got a couple other hellos we want to say. Lainey. If I got that wrong, I apologize. Let me know. We love to get people's names right. Watching from Namibia via LinkedIn. Great to see you here. Ramsey, also watching from Lagos via LinkedIn. Great to see you here, Ramsey. Eric from Ghana. Great to see you here, also via LinkedIn. Quite the international audience here. Oh, K-Rod is with us.
Oh, hey, K-Rod.
How about that? He's no trucker hat today, Ward.
Scott, K-Rod has moved to Virginia. She left Dallas. She got a promotion, and she's managing 5 different offices for Colliers now in the Northeast. So what's up, K-Rod?
Awesome. Congrats on your promotion. And, of course, Nerf is with us. He's back with us. Here come the comments. I think he's referring to the Cowboys and the Eagles comments there earlier today. Nerf helps us keep a nice sense of humor throughout these global supply chain conversations. Okay. So Will and Todd, let's get to some of the heavy lifting. Is that right, Ward? We're going to learn more about their firm, right?
That's right. So let's start out with Will. And Will, do you mind giving us a little? I'd love to hear just like when Prologis decided to start Prologis Ventures, and then dig into the investment strategy and how you guys are bringing value to Prologis as a whole.
Yep. Yeah. So we launched Prologis Ventures in March 2016. And really the conversation was around the fact that real estate has been able to sit in a very privileged position for a number of years where we didn't really have to worry about disruption. So the old adage is what's real estate? It's location, location, location. So you buy a building in a great location and you can sit back and collect rent and it's golden. What we started noticing was a couple things is that the underlying business model of our customers was changing and it was having a direct impact on the real estate itself. So we were the beneficiary of e-commerce, right? So there's a massive tailwind, but that doesn't mean that business isn't going to evolve and shift and have implications. Someone who was, on suburban retail would have a very different opinion on e-commerce and the impact on their real estate. We also at that time was when you started seeing models like an Airbnb emerge or WeWork. Now, for whatever happened to WeWork, it still did change how tenants thought about tenancy. Right.
And by the way, there are some really intriguing documentaries on the WeWork story, Netflix and beyond. But to your point, though, still you can't deny the model. You can't deny the impact they've had.
And it also, we were at the forefront of realizing, you know what, like disruption can occur in our industry, and it's not like a software where overnight someone's going to come out with something better and you can be obliterated, but it could be a very long, slow draw if we stick our head in the sand and look up 10 years from now. And Hamid, who's the CEO, is incredibly innovative, incredibly forward thinking. And I think it's a lot why we as a company are in the position we are, because we're always pushing forward.
Mm-hmm.
But the concern here is we don't want to be the Luddites and driving the horse carriage when like 15 years from now when EVs are a thing, right?
Right.
So there's the aspect that second, data analytics, that real estate has really been an industry that's worked through intuition and relationships. And that will continue and are important. But if we can figure out how to leverage data to get predictive rather than looking regressive on data, but how do we predict what's going to come? How do we leverage our platform and scale to drive value and get insights in new ways? And that was another big aspect when we started 5 years ago on like, how do we really think differently? There is no playbook for what we were doing in the real estate industry, but there are other industries that are taking components of it. So look outside our walls and see, how do we learn from the financial industry? How do we learn from insurance? How do we learn from our customers? How do we look at what is happening in enterprise software and take those learnings and apply them to ourselves? The other aspect that this was probably a year in that we really started focusing on too was real estate's actually a very odd business when you think about it, that no other industry do you spend 3 months negotiating a contract and then try to ignore that customer for the next 7 years. Right? Like every other industry, it's I have a captive customer. How do I bring that customer value in new ways? How do I increase the lifetime value of it? How do I find solutions? And we as a company recognize that we're actually sitting in a very privileged position, that we have almost 1 billion square feet now. We have relationships with the top players in supply chain logistics, but 80% of our customers are actually small, medium businesses. So if we think about customer centricity in a very different manner, which is actually more consistent how the rest of the world thinks of it, which is part of the adjacent learnings, but with our customers, how do we leverage our scale and size to figure out new opportunities? So where are we seeing consistent pain points across our customers in transportation and labor and sustainability? And how do we as an entity go out and find solutions for them? So that really gets into one of the major roles of the Prologis Ventures team is, one, can we find disruptive technologies that we as a company can use? So things that help our core business, how we interact, how we drive capital deployment decisions, how we manage our buildings, how we build our buildings. But where we spend a bulk of our time is really on the warehouse operations. So what goes inside the four walls,
right?
Sustainability and energy. And we can talk more about some of the things we're doing there. And then finally, generally supply chain and logistics. So for every dollar in rent our customers spend, they spend 6 on labor. They spend 10 on transportation. And you look in transportation example, the inefficiencies occur. So if you ever drive around an industrial park, you'll just see tractor trailers lined up. And why is that occurring? Is it because there isn't visibility? Do you need better communications? Is there ways that we as an owner can help facilitate and create more seamless transactions between the people inside the warehouse and the trucks? And if we can solve that problem, we're adding value in new ways. So a lot of our thesis then are based on how do we go find disruptive technology that can solve those major pain points.
Wow. All right.
Amazing.
Whole different game, whole different ball game here as you're describing it, Will. So many questions, so little time. We got some great comments here, but I'm going to wait because I want to, Todd, Will kind of painted a very helpful picture there. But, Ward and I are curious, what else would you add to that, Todd?
And hey, one more question for you, Todd, as you dig into that is what does the team size look like at Prologis Ventures as well?
Yeah, so we're a lean crew, roughly 6 of us in total. But we have such a broad reach within the company because we leverage just some brilliant minds at Prologis. Prologis in its own right we only have 1,900 people. And I came from UPS with 450,000 people, right? So it's a different world entirely. But there are absolutely brilliant people at this company. And our team, leans into each of those when it comes to subject matter expertise, when we want to go find technology, and especially when we think about our customers. So then now I'm going to pivot into your question around what would I add. Will had touched on it briefly on how customer-centric we are. Well, it's such a fine point of our thesis when we do go look at investments. We build our strategies predicated on our customers' largest needs and pain points. And so we work, in many cases, we'll work with our customers to define what that means. And that's such a unique way to invest capital, right? It's not this shiny penny approach where you go and you're out in the world and you're like, oh, that looks really interesting. Let's go make an investment. It's the opposite of that. It's this extremely tactical way to say, you tell us what are your biggest concerns over the next 5, 10 years? Because by all means, Prologis is this Switzerland of real estate, right? And again, this is new to me in that joining a company where we support some of the largest companies on the planet in e-commerce all equally. It gives us a privileged perspective on where the future is headed for what the modern warehouse of the future looks like, what technologies will blend with traditional labor and new state automation. And so as a very tactical example, one of the things we have done is actually built this automation thesis, using the criteria of our customers to understand what are their largest pain points and how can we leverage technology or bring technology to those partners to help better enable their business, right? So that the real estate they're in today is as meaningful and as powerful as it needs to be 10 years from now. And I think that's one of the super exciting things that our team gets to do is have that type of dialogue.
I love that.
Todd, just to add on a quick point on what Todd was saying, even beyond what we're talking to customers on the automation example, we had customers in different sectors actually share the metrics that they would use to measure success. So we then can see across 5 different sectors, here's a big customer in each, here's what they would look at to adopt automation. And then when you're going to talk to a company, it's here's exactly what you need to hit to get adoption with these 5 customers. So it really changes the mentality then on how you're investing, because it's very clearly defined what the opportunity is, and allows us to be very thoughtful about where we put our capital and the partners that we bring in.
Yep. So one thought comes to my mind, Ward, is, innovation centers became all the rage here in the last decade or so. Yeah. We've got dozens, if not hundreds of them across Atlanta, but most of them tend to be internally staffed, internal run operations. What I love about this, what I'm hearing here is Prologis is going to customers, give me your problems. And then rather than, only have internal talent try to come up with solutions, they're making investments with some of the best and brightest outside the 4 walls, as it were. So this is pretty exciting to hear about. All right, Ward, give you a chance to respond. I'm going to share a couple comments, including some folks that want to speak to Todd about his story earlier. Hey, sense of humor is important around here. But Ward, what's something you hear?
Oh, I mean, I think that's all amazing, and there's so much that you're talking about doing here, and like talking to all the customers about all this. I'm curious. I have friends that are in the VC business, and it's especially before COVID, it was mind blowing to me. And they live in San Francisco, of course, because that's just kind of the hub of all of that. But just the flights to New York and everywhere, meeting with all of these entrepreneurs that have these ideas. So I mean, how often there's 6 of you that are really meeting with these all of these entrepreneurs out there with these ideas. How many meetings are you taking a week with these folks? And like how's that qualification process working?
Yeah, it's busy. I guess that's the short answer. I think one of the things that we did very early on is really established a comprehensive network across the different VCs, different technology companies, and then even our customers, because VC is an interesting business. Whereas in real estate, when I was buying real estate, I would never call up 3 or 4 other real estate firms and be like, hey, here's a really great building. Why don't we all partner and go in and make this a better building together? Like it's no, we're buying this and we'll compete for it. VC is the opposite, where you're literally every time you're looking at a company, you're like, okay, I want my piece, but here's 3 or 4 people that I can bring in who will offer value to this company in unique ways. So we've within that construct of recognized, here's where Prologis excels, here's what we can bring to the table, here's our unique perspective. And because of that, we're viewed as a really good partner to be brought in the deal. So I don't know. I mean, my schedule is all day in meetings all day long. But
Well,
it's exciting. And
as we were coming on earlier today, Will, you were closing the big deal right in the minutes before the show. So I bet you do.
Are you traveling again, or are you doing a lot?
Starting to. I would say that one of the benefits is COVID. I think a lot of times now you realize, like, I don't actually need to fly to Chicago to see the PowerPoint. Like, it is really, really valuable to meet people in person and spend time, and that can never be replicated. But if you're going to look at 500 companies a year, let's spend time on the 30 to 50 that we really want to do versus having to go see PowerPoints for each of them. So I think we've gotten even more efficient of time now, and people are understanding of it. It's like, okay, the company themselves, if we aren't going to be a great fit, it's not worth their time to host us for a couple hours and a dinner. So I think it's made us much more efficient. But I do miss, and we're starting to get back into it, sitting down with someone and actually hearing the story and seeing how they interact. And that human connection is super important. We got away from it for obvious reasons for the last year, but it's coming back, and people are really appreciate it again, which is cool. Like, you go out to work dinners now and people are like, wow, this is great, versus before it was like, God, this is the 5th one this week.
They're all like, man, I love it. Hugs. And everybody's like, well, let's slow down on the hugs soon.
Not sure what to do.
I want to share this from Michael. It says, it is powerful when you take solutions to your clients based on their operational data. That lets them know you are invested in their success. Excellent point there. I want to welcome Mervyn. Mervyn, great to have you back via Dublin and via LinkedIn. Great to see you here today. All right, so I gotta circle back. Todd, really enjoyed the front end of this conversation. So Allison says, worse than giving birth. Rest in peace, Todd Lewis. And then Nerf says, rest in peace.
I said, I heard. It was all hearsay. Yeah.
Oh, gosh. Hey, you got to have a sense of humor these days. I think we've all heard about how, well, you know what? I'm not going to go down that path. I'm going to get in trouble myself. So we're going to keep moving forward.
That I'm not getting into.
Right. Well, hey, so what I want to do next, and I appreciate y'all sharing more about what the organization does, what the approach is, what the value is. Just in talking with y'all, holy cow. And Todd, you were talking about kind of some things you'd done to transform how UPS did it earlier. Man, y'all are your math abilities must be several pay grades above mine. I have a hard enough time with public math. Y'all heard that phrase, public math? We don't do math in public around these parts. But let's talk about, to give some more context to some of the business models that you're investing in, and some of the ways they're solving problems and driving innovation. And Will, I'm going to start with you, and then we're going to circle back and get Todd's color commentary as well. So Will, what do some of those investments look like?
Yeah, I would say we're very thesis driven. So we talked a little bit about areas of focus. I'll give an example, a couple areas that we spend time. One is labor. So if you go ask our customers right now, their biggest pain points, it's labor. So within that, there's 4 key components of it: recruitment, retention, training, and safety. And each of them, we have the potential to offer solutions in them. So we've invested in a company called WorkStep, which is a database of warehouse workers that people can actively use to recruit talent. On that, they've actually built a retention platform that allows people to get actual insights into what's keeping employees at a company or reasons why they're leaving, but really getting to the root cause. And the common thing, for example, in warehouses, well, someone took a job because they got 15 cents or 25 cents more from the warehouse across the street. When you actually look at the data, a manager of a warehouse who walks around and says, hey, Ward, hey, Scott, hey, Todd, how are you doing today? Versus someone who just sits in the office, there's a clear difference in retention. So the fact that, okay, the pay is impact, but there are other aspects that actually influence retention and understanding that. Another example, a company we invested in is Kinetic, which does wearable devices
Right.
For workers. So if I'm doing an unsafe movement, I'm bending over improperly, it'll give me a haptic ping. And so I understand, like, okay, I'm putting my body at risk and putting myself in an unsafe environment. It trains workers to be able to better use and avoid workplace injuries. We've made an investment in a company called Striver that does virtual training for warehouse workers. So these are different ways we're thinking about it. On top of it, we as a company incubate businesses too. So I'll talk a little bit later about something we're doing with EV that's really exciting. But on worker training, we actually launched probably 2 years ago, maybe a little bit longer, something we call Community Workforce Initiative. And this, every time we build a building, we actually self-impose a tax. And we take that money and reinvest in the local communities
Really?
for worker training. So we've worked with a number of local organizations, NGOs, nonprofits that can help provide training resources for the workforce in areas that we are participants. Our goal is by 2025 to train 25,000 workers.
Wow. Okay. So a lot of the common themes, those examples there, safety and training, investing in the workforce, as you put it, labor is top of mind. It seems like for everybody right now, not just here in the States. So Todd, what else would you add? Those are some pretty powerful examples. In particular, I like how you also look to invest, beyond those businesses, you look to invest in the communities they're plugged into. That's got a great do good, give forward vibe to it. Todd, what else would you add about some of the investments you are making and some of the problems and innovation that they're addressing?
Sure. So, well, before I jump too far, fun story. Kinetic was the first startup that I was ever able to get a commercial agreement when I was at UPS. So prior to even joining Prologis, prior to knowing that Prologis had invested in Kinetic, we had been working with Hatham and that team to help bring safety, kind of this digital safety approach to our operations at UPS, which I thought was such a fascinating, like it came full circle because then I joined the Prologis team and had a chance to go have drinks with Hatham, and it was just
love it.
Just great stories. Cool. But anyways, it kind of taught me the power of how, these small innovative companies, the impact it can have on thought leadership at these, Fortune 50 companies. So it was kind of the starting point for me to really, really take off in startup land. I would say from Prologis Ventures, the other area, a couple other companies that we've invested in that are just absolutely fantastic. Outrider is one that stands out to me as one that is extremely transformative. When you think, Will gave an example earlier, you'll drive by a facility and you'll see just lines of trucks, right? Just waiting to get in.
Right.
And part of this is when you try to think of what the yard looks like, what's the yard of the future mean? And what technologies will enable, our customers to understand where their assets are in those parking lots and in that yard. Well, Outrider is they're an automation company that's brought automation or an autonomous vehicle to moving trailers around within your yard and being able to actually act as the jockey in backing trailers up and making sure that the doors are loaded with the right trailers and that you can actually autonomously move and position your goods within the yard. And I'll go to your initial question, which is around the business case around that. Well, when you think about labor and you also think about what's happening inside the four walls, so you have these challenges of distributing labor to unload these trailers as fast as possible, but you also have a challenge of making sure you have to have labor outside that's making sure that those trailers are in the right spot at the right time. And it's the right goods, right? So it just can't be any trailer that you're just pulling up to an open dock.
Right.
And Outrider is a fantastic example of how the world is starting to see or how it can capture and lean into automation to empower more streamlined efficiencies inside the four walls. So that's an interesting company. They're outstanding. They're going to do great things.
Yep.
Another great company along the same lines is Baton. And Baton has tackled this use case where if you think about long haul trucking, right? And you look at it from an efficiency standpoint, just purely efficiency.
Yep.
The front end and the back end of that trip are highly inefficient, right? So the last 3 miles and the first 3 miles are extremely inefficient from the driver's perspective.
Right.
And these drivers are gold, right? And I mean that through and through. In
Right.
that
Salt of the earth. Yep.
Yeah, absolutely. And their time is so valuable because they are now mandated to be, for how many hours of service they can have in a given day and in a given week. And so every minute lost in dwell time or whatever, however they're losing those minutes is precious to the customers that are reliant on that cargo. So Baton operates these drop lots that will allow drivers to operate on a point to point. So they completely trim those tails, and they'll allow you to drop trailers and hook trailers in the same lot instantly.
Oh,
and then they can digitally coordinate when the door is ready to be, when it's open for delivery. They'll coordinate with a local service to get those trailers to and from the dock door. And again, it's a game changer in the sense of when you think of the broad swath of where transportation's headed and how we're starting to see efficiencies take place, or where the opportunities lie. Baton's fantastic, and they're tackling that use case. It also collides with all things autonomous vehicles, which I'm a huge fan of, and led an investment in too simple while I was at UPS.
Love it. Love it, Todd. Going back to the trucker for a second, Ward, you and I had a pretty eye-opening interview with
I was just thinking about that.
Current truck driver, Kelly Lynn, and her last name escapes me right this
McLaughlin.
second. Yes, thank
Kelly
you.
Lynn McLaughlin. She's at Schneider. She's a truck driver there. So our last podcast, Scott and I did, she was our guest.
Yep.
Oh, fantastic.
And she actually said, Will and Todd, a rhetorical question, when did, because of all the feedback she gets, and because of some of the pressures not to drive for a living, she came out and said, when did truck driving make us, make drivers as second-class citizens because of how they're treated?
Wow.
So you got to love on our truck drivers. Amanda, Clay, or Jada, if we could drop that episode in the comments, that'd be great. Kelly Lynn was, to your point, Todd, she's gold and just salt to the earth.
Yeah, they're Schneider's a partner of ours in one of our portfolio companies called Platform Science, and it's amazing how forward-thinking that company is. But it's really the core is the driver and making sure that they have a good experience and that they as we've seen in the last couple years, they're so crucial, the underpinnings of our supply chain, and the fact that it's viewed as second class is actually detrimental to all of us, because without them, I can't get anything delivered at home. Like you're seeing what's happening at the ports right now, right? And truck drivers are an essential part of it. Agreed.
Will, great point. All right. So Ward, any comment based on what Will and Todd has shared on some of these great investments and some of the meaningful innovation? Innovation has become one of those cliche. I think a lot of times it is a lot of folks think of ideation, but what I'm hearing with Will and Todd, this is action, bottom line, driving change, driving industry change. And in some cases, we're just getting started. The impact, what Todd was talking about earlier, the impact is going to be only get greater in the months ahead. But Ward, I know we want to talk about trends, but any comments on your end before you ask?
I think that you're just hitting the nail on the head with, I think the two things I hear about the most, and we didn't really talk about it earlier, but what I do with Colliers is represent tenants. So my job, I think at the heart of my job is to understand what the tenants want as well, which is what I think Prologis is really good at doing. And we're very aligned from that angle. And that's the number one thing, or I guess the top two things are labor and transportation. It's having the right labor, and it's moving freight as fast and efficiently as possible. So that's what you guys are talking about here. So what's on the horizon? I know, and also on our last Prologis episode that we did, Stephen Hussein was on, who talks very highly of the Prologis Ventures team
earlier.
Yeah, so I know that you guys work closely with him, and he's we're developing a building in Dallas right now with another one of my clients. It's with the 3PL client, and
Mhm.
we're trying to really look into the green initiatives. We're trying to be as forward thinking as possible. And but like the next topic I'd like to discuss, I'll let you start, Will, is what's on the horizon. There's no doubt green initiatives are on the horizon, and you guys are doing that. I think it's your base buildings in a lot of cases, and Steven's really educated me on that, but I'd love to dig into that. And then also just like what else you're seeing on the horizon outside of what we've already discussed.
Yep. Yeah, and I'll do a very brief segue just to talk on Scott's comment on innovation earlier, and then bring it back to exactly what you suggested. I think innovation has become a buzzword. The way we've always thought about it is innovation occurs when constraints are removed and white space opens up. And if you think about, okay, why machine learning is valuable, suddenly you can process data and make decisions faster than ever were before. So Uber had two constraints. One, that trust to get into a car, and they figure out how to do that. And second, how do you suddenly process where all these vehicles are? And by removing those constraints, suddenly a way to disrupt taxis opened up. So if you think of all our businesses, there are some constraints that are laws of physics that you can't fix, but
Right.
most constraints in life are self-imposed or technology can help address over time. So a lot of this stuff can be continual improvement on how do we just optimize. And we as a company have done a ton of things around Kaizens and looking at our leasing processes, our capital deployment, and creating efficiencies there. And then a portion of the time spending a lot of more transformational ideas. So an area that we're really excited around, and you're alluding to, was sustainability. And within that, we are the third largest operator of rooftop solar in the world, and less than 2% of our roofs are actually covered by solar right now. So there is a massive opportunity as you get moved to a more decentralized electric grid. So centralized electric grid is what we traditionally had with power points. Solar, which is on a bunch of rooftops, is a decentralized network.
Right.
Within that, you get battery storage. Where we are really excited also is electric vehicles. So we have Amazon, for example, has publicly announced they've ordered 100,000 Rivian trucks. Todd, when he was at UPS, led an investment in a company called Arrive. And I can't remember what the order was, but it was a massive order. Across our customer base, everyone is really focusing on how to get to a carbon neutral supply chain.
Right.
And these vehicles are going to be coming off the line in the next couple of years, and none of the infrastructure exists today to actually charge these vehicles. And very rarely do you get an industry. I think $200 billion was spent last year by trucks on molecules or traditional diesel fuel.
Yep.
That is going to be completely up in the air on as these fleets transition, what infrastructure and how's that. Now it's going to be electrons instead of molecules. How's that actually can provide it? So when we take a step back and look and say, all right, with 1 billion square feet where these vehicles likely will be charged as a component, the fact that we have 1 billion square feet of roofs that we can put solar on to actually produce the energy,
Right.
there is a massive opportunity for us to really be at the forefront and helping our customers shift through this transition. So we've recently hired an individual, Henrik Holland, who was at Shell for 18 years, to come in and lead our global EV infrastructure and mobility practice. And this is going to be creating turnkey solutions for our customers with the right ecosystem of partners, whether it's the hardware, software providers, utilities, and then the manufacturers themselves, to be able to accelerate this adoption. And for us, when you look at the business opportunity, it's massive. But even the societal benefits that we can help bring by pushing forward a change that companies are really excited about and are putting a lot of effort behind. But we can be a great partner to facilitate that happening faster, more streamlined, in a more effective way. And I mean, we talked earlier about our kids, right? If I can actually contribute and make the world a better place for my two daughters, that's something like I actually get excited about and wake up
no doubt,
energized, right?
Name of the game. All right.
And-
So Ward, you're asking about what's next. What's next? Will painted quite a picture. Todd, what would you add?
Well, dealer's choice, gentlemen. I can talk autonomous vehicles, or I can talk warehouse automation.
Yeah.
Warehouse automation. Hit that one.
What are you most excited about?
Let's go warehouse operations. When you think of the combination of workflow automation and traditional labor, because they are tied together at this point, right? So there's two types of automation. There's the structured version of automation, which are big belt systems. So your UPSs and Amazons of the world, when you look inside, when you peek under the hood of some of their largest facilities, miles of belts, right? That move millions of packages every single day. You got it, right?
Man, wait a second. Wait a
Second.
second, Todd. Hang on a sec. We just got world-class sound effects there provided by Ward Richmond. How does that go, Ward?
Yeah.
Was in Police Academy? Remember that dude in Police Academy back in the day? He used to do all the sound
Oh,
effects.
yeah.
Oh,
That's like Ward.
I'm telling you.
Second career for Ward at the Improv. You can catch him this Saturday night, folks. All right. So Todd, just having a good time. You got to maintain
it's perfect.
humor, right? All right. So Todd, you're painting a picture of these massive fulfillment distribution centers, all these miles and millions of miles of conveyor belts. So pick it back up from there.
So it's a highly structured world, and it's extremely the more structured automation is extremely efficient. It's designed to move those million packages a day. And the opposite of structured innovation or structured automation would be this more flexible approach, where you think of autonomous forklift companies. So we have an investment in a company named Gideon Brothers, and they're out of Croatia. It's one of the most brilliant companies on the planet when it comes to machine learning robotics. And what they're solving for is the ability to load and unload trailers with autonomous forklifts. So at UPS alone, that was a multi-billion-dollar problem. And if you think across our customer base, when we look at the problem sets that they face over the next 5 to 10 years,
right?
Well, every single one of our buildings has dock doors, and they all have trailers that need to be loaded and unloaded. And so this is a synonymous use case across all of our partners. And that was one key category that we wanted to invest in. And so when I think of what's next, I think of a world where the future state of warehouse operations is this combination of highly flexible automation and a traditional workforce. And that traditional workforce, they're not being displaced per se. They're being upskilled to where now you're in a control tower and you're managing and coordinating maybe 10, 12, 20 different types of robotic automation or system automations to create a more efficient facility. Something that can now produce maybe 20 to 30 times, the efficiency and the power of what that same footprint could do before. Right. And I think that's an incredibly attractive target for many of our small to medium business partners that are looking to get the most out of their operations and the most out of their people. Forklift automation is one category.
Right.
The other category might be, put away in storage, right?
Right.
A fantastic example that we've also invested in would be a company named Locus Robotics. And Locus does kind of the pick to goods type fulfillment movement. So they're helping traditional labor manage a massive footprint of fulfillment orders, right? So there's a bunch of different categories that are starting to emerge, and the ability to stitch those companies together so that they can work in a single, operated and orchestrated by a single person. Yep. I think that's an exciting future, right?
Agreed.
Because it's led by you and I. I'm not a PhD roboticist, yet if I could walk into a facility and, pull out a tablet and just drag and drop what I want to happen and click go and have, automation assist me in my task. Right. I think that's a wildly attractive outcome for our customers and their futures.
Sign me up, Todd. Sign me up. It's creating a whole new art of the possible. And I agree with you. And you know what? For our all the incredible people that make up the global workforce. It's creating new opportunities for them, new opportunities, more compensation, more fulfilling careers, new skills learned, and then some.
It also, Scott, on that creates
Yeah.
a safer environment. So like in a traditional pick and pack environment, someone used to have to walk 9 to 12 miles a day.
Right.
With something like Locus, that individual can stay in a smaller area and the robot comes to them. And so you're having less wear and tear on the body and you're making the person more efficient. The other area that we're really excited about is really the future of commerce. And that would be, as a company, Prologis has been very, very active buying urban infill real estate for last mile distribution. The business model behind that is rapidly evolving. So how do you think about new distribution delivery methods, whether it's drones, whether it's automated vehicles, inventory management and placement? So if I'm going to get same day, next day delivery, they have to predict that I'm going to buy something and put it in a location close to me.
Right.
And then think about the flow through the entire supply chain, where how do I how do I have that inventory in the right place, the right time, in a systematic way? And we're all seeing a lot of the pressures on supply chain right now, with the trucks waiting outside Port of LA, the delays. You walk into Target or retail or the grocery store, they don't have as much on the shelves right now. That is a really, really interesting area that we're digging in, is how do you enable the flow of commerce? How do you enable e-commerce? But really the inventory management, the visibility and the connectivity between all these different players.
I love it. And so does Peter Bollet. He says to use a Scottism there. I didn't know that was such a thing. Great stuff here. It is great stuff. And Peter's also getting out. He's departing early, hitting link. So Peter, hit him good. All right. And by the way, going back to Will, you had a call out there, and our world-class research team, that was Michael Winslow, was the sound guy from Police Academy, the Pride of Spokane, Washington.
That's right.
Michael Winslow.
Yeah, that guy was awesome.
All right. So y'all got us excited. You got us excited about the future of commerce, the future supply chain. I really, I love the Prologis's approach at innovating in a way that it's customers, tell us what you're struggling with, and then going out there outside the four walls to make it happen with some of the best in industry. It's a very unique model. And Ward, I tell you, I wish I could do some of this. Ward, what are some of based on what Will and Todd has shared here today? What's some of your final thoughts?
Just so thankful to have you guys with us here today, and hope to stay in touch, and let's keep moving forward and making the life better for all of our customers and the supply chain, and then hopefully improving the sustainability for the future for our kids out there, because it's a real thing. And all these warehouses getting built, we're going to have to do something, because it can't just keep continuing the way that things have been getting done in the past. It's just not feasible. So I'm really thankful to have guys like you here in this world doing what you're doing, because it's absolutely necessary. So many thanks.
Yeah, echo what Ward just said there, especially the important stuff about challenging and changing the status quo, because that's not what's going to get us to tackle some of these really important goals. By the way, Jennifer, one of y'all's colleagues with Prologis, thanks for all of your facilitation, Jennifer. Coming up on October 27th, we got a thought leadership event. It's going to be streamed globally. Folks, y'all can join there if you click on that link in the comments in Skybox. Thanks so much, Jennifer.
Yeah,
okay.
that quickly, but that would be a cool event. He's going to be interviewing the CEO of UPS. We have the woman who actually we're partnering with on the workforce training initiative. We're going to have a panel on sustainability, and then I'm going to end a panel with transportation. So
wonderful,
really exciting event, and it's going to be really about change and innovation and thought leadership. So
love it. Will, did you say is that the Carol Tomei is going to be there?
It is the Carol Tomei.
Man, one of the best interviews.
Yeah.
Talk about moving the industry forward.
She's a force. I'm really looking forward to this one. So it'll be good.
A dynamo. Okay. So Will, Todd, it is. We don't have enough time. We need to bolt on a few more hours. I love, by the way, clearly y'all are enjoying what you're doing, and there's a great camaraderie between you. We'll have to get all 6 of y'all in a room at some point soon. But in the meantime, beyond checking out that October 27th event, again, folks, the link is in the comments. We'll add it to the show notes of the podcast replay. Will, how can folks connect with you?
Yeah, you had asked me this question earlier, and you said people would sometimes struggle with it. I was confused. Like people like, you can fax me or something. So the LinkedIn's obviously an easy way. Prologis Ventures has a website. Just there's this thing called Google. Type in Prologis Ventures, and we'll pop up. And then my email address is W.O'Donnell. You can without the apostrophe in the email at prologis.com. And with this stuff, we actually love to chat with people, love to hear ideas, and we're always curious to learn more. So, Todd,
how can folks track you down?
Well, Carrier Pigeon and LinkedIn, both are phenomenal methods. But no, feel free, please tag me on LinkedIn. Love to connect and chat all things supply chain. And then equally, head on out to our Prologis Ventures website. And there's a nice way to connect with us there. But it's been fantastic, Scott and Ward. Thank you for having us on.
Well,
yeah,
hey,
on the website, you can see the full list of the investments we've made, and there's little briefings behind all of it. So,
wonderful. Well, big thanks to you both. I appreciate all 3 of y'all letting me hang out without any facial hair. It's nice to be included in these cool conversations. Hey, Will O'Donnell, Todd Lewis with Prologis Ventures, home run stuff. We'll have to get an update on how the end of the year goes with you both, but really appreciate Prologis' commitment to not only addressing the current state, but building a much brighter future for commerce, supply chain, and a whole lot more. Big thanks, Will and Todd. Thanks so much.
Hey, thank you guys for having us out today.
Thanks, guys.
A lot of fun.
Thanks.
And we'll get together for that Eagles game at some point. So.
Yeah.
Y'all have a great weekend.
Thanks, guys.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Man, that is quite the dynamic duo. And man, do you see Todd? Well, both of them had tons of passion. But man, when Todd started talking about innovation, some of those things, his eyes just lit up. I love that.
Man.
But all right, so Ward, what was some of your favorite parts of the last hour or so?
Well, I mean, the passion that's there is just so evident in both of those guys, and Prologis is lucky to have them both. And I loved hearing about everything that's going on. And I mean, a lot of it's way above my pay grade. I love talking about like learning about all of this stuff that's going on out there that I've never even heard about. And I know that labor is a problem and transportation is a problem, but then when I hear about these solutions that are getting done behind the scenes out there, it's really fascinating. So,
yep. Agreed.
Yeah.
Well, hey, I appreciate your good work in facilitating these conversations. I think this was our of this season, as it were, of the Supply Chain Real Estate Series. I think this is season 3. This was the 3rd installment.
Yes,
and
sir.
we've gotten a lot of great feedback on these conversations with various members of the Prologis team. But hey, let's make sure folks know how to connect with Ward Richmond.
Yes, sir. LinkedIn is a great way to connect with me. So you can always just search Ward Richmond on LinkedIn. So hit me up there. Love to connect. And I'm almost at 10,000 followers, I just realized. So I'm just like a couple hundred away. So love to get there before the end of the year. And
big goals.
Then I have also got my blog, supplychainrealestate.com. And of course, I'm with Colliers International. So you can go find me there as well. So, thanks, Scott, for organizing all this with your great company and letting me be a part of it. As always, it's just such a pleasure, my man.
Well, I appreciate the passion you bring to the table. Hey, folks, all the comments, thanks for tuning in. Again, we love a good sense of humor around here. And, that was certainly one of my favorite parts between you and Todd and Will. It's good. As stressful as some of these days are, it is good. Laughter is perhaps the best medicine. But what a great story. One of innovation and business and opportunities for all, including the founders of some of these companies, the teams of some of these companies, but also the global workforce. So big on behalf of Ward Richmond, on behalf of our entire team, Amanda and Clay and Allie and Jed, all behind the scenes. This is Scott Luton signing off right now. Hey, folks, do good, give forward, be the change that's needed. And on that note, we'll see you next time right back here on Supply Chain Now. Thanks, everybody.
Adios.